Welcome into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you live on a Thursday. A little scheduling error earlier in the week, but we are here nonetheless for a little recap action, a little preview, a little quick hitter on Saturday as well. So we can still get you your 2 episodes. How you doing today, Joe?
One hitter quitter, baby, for Saturday.
Yes. Question of the day. Going to throw it back to your childhood there, Jell.
Oi.
Maybe not. Maybe now, too. If you could be the sidekick of a superhero for a day, who would it be?
Well, I feel like Robin is the worst just because, like, everybody that describes somebody as, like, the number 2 is looked at as Robin.
Or we could change it too to like, who would you want to job shadow for a day or something too?
Well, okay. Going back to a childhood crush, I guess. Mary Jane, Spider-Man, Peter Parker.
Nice.
I would not mind being in his shoes for that one. So, yeah, I guess I'll go. Wouldn't mind being Mary Jane if that counts as a side character.
Nice.
Well, wait. No, I don't want to be Mary Jane. I want her in my life. Like, yeah, that was
Gotcha.
worded weird. clear the tape. reverse. I would like to be Peter Parker in that scenario because of Mary Jane. We'll leave it at that.
Sounds good. I think I'd want to be probably Superman's sidekick. I think it'd be pretty sweet to fly. So pretty straight, simple to the point.
I mean, if you can fly, that's not bad. It's kind of badass. Like,
right.
Like, if you were able to fly, aren't you just immediately like the best NFL receiver of all time? Immediately, right? Assuming you have any sort of hands whatsoever. Well, I guess you don't even need that good of hands. You could just take a pitch and just whoop, just fly into the end zone.
I have to imagine you'd get past that for one day if somebody didn't know you could fly, and then there'd be an immediate amendum to the rules.
Like, I'm just imagining, like, you could just have, as long as you could be like a punter, like take the snap back, however many yards that is, 15 yards, and just catch it and just whoop, fly over everyone.
The ultimate fantasy football player. Just unlimited touchdowns every week.
Aquaman's sidekick sounds kind of lame. I don't know.
I don't know if I'd want to be in the water that much, but yeah, I would agree.
Being Patrick Star, if you want to call SpongeBob a superhero, wouldn't be too bad being Patrick Star. I mean,
you could be Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
Yeah, there you go.
Jeez.
Kicking with gas.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. On YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports into the search bar. Click that bell, subscribe so that we know when our episodes drop. We are live on YouTube during this recording. So if you are watching us, got the nice chat box next to you. Just go ahead and ask any questions. We have a
little preview for you live viewers before the that Bengals Dolphins game that's going to be kicking off in a couple hours.
Absolutely.
Good old Amazon. Let's see. Did they get? It felt like they got their stream right last week. It wasn't as disastrous as week 1, at least.
Yeah, I was watching it on my laptop, so it still was a little bit goofy, I think, as opposed to if I would have had it on the TV on the app. But when you're married, you have sacrifices. So have the TV shows up on the big TV, and then you watch football on the laptop. So
if you have to trade Thursday night for all day Sunday, you make that trade.
You make that trade 10 out of 10 times. Absolutely. Jell's firing off TikTok.
And speaking of fire for you YouTube viewers, fire is lit, rolling hard.
Yes. Absolutely. Joe will be shooting out his picks for you for some betting nuggets. We're going to do a little quick hitter for you on Saturday as well. So make sure you tune in for that. And yeah, we'll kick it off, Jill. We'll just do a quick recap here. Usually we have a recap episode earlier in the week, but scheduling, we're going to just kind of do more of a preview episode this time around. But what were and some of the NCAA takeaways, just quick takeaways that you had from this last weekend? I mean, there's some awesome games, but not awesome for the Badgers. We won't talk about that other than
we can skip past skip past that game. No, I mean, takeaway number one is that, which we kind of already knew this beforehand, but it's been now confirmed, like, for the entirety of the season so far. If Clemson wants to hang in there and make this college football playoff, with that defense, they have no chance. I mean, they're giving up they gave up points to in all their opponents so far. They're giving up mad points. They've been in way too many close games where it's coming down. I mean, yeah, that Florida State game at the end, they kind of pulled away where they were able to bring in Kate Klubnik. But for at least the beginning part of that game a couple of weeks ago, it was way too tight of a game. This past week against Wake Forest, which we told you keep an eye on a potential upset, did go into overtime, but that defense they're letting up way too many points. And if you're a Clemson team, your aspirations, while you got Dabo Swinney, while you got the number one QB recruit in the country for his draft class, at least, I mean, the expectation is national championship or bust, or at least make the title game, make the playoff or bust. If that defense keeps being this weak, they have no chance. They've got a tough test against NC State coming up this week. We may touch on that later in the episode, but the way that they're playing right now, offense is actually, they're putting up points, but this defense is a joke, and they've got a lot of work to do there.
Yeah, their defense was one of the strong suits, or at least everybody thought so heading into the season. So it was surprising. I mean, Sam Hartman, Wake Forest, they're a good offense. Their defense is definitely has higher aspirations than what they've done so far this season. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. Came down to overtime. There are 2 overtimes, and yeah, Clemson ended up winning by 6 points. But again, like you said, they can put up points, but which will be fine in ACC play. They should probably coast by. Probably, like you mentioned, we'll talk about the NC State.
But it can just take one slip up, Yeah, and that ruins your hopes and dreams in your season.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see if they do make it into the playoff, what this offense looks like going up against Alabama, up against Georgia. I mean, if they get matched up with Ohio State, that's going to be just one epic shootout, I think, in the first round. But if they get matched up against Alabama, Georgia, it'll be interesting to see what their offense can do against that defense.
Get the fuck out of here. No chance.
Yes. One of the games I wanted to talk about a little bit here is just some of the games that just came down to just absolutely just blowing out. Washington State ends up blowing.
That would have been the next game I would have touched on too.
12-point lead with 6:42 left in the game. And you also had trying to think what other game too, the which one was it?
Well, Kentucky only won by 1 score.
Yep.
Texas A&M, Arkansas, that was close. I don't know exactly where you're going.
Yep. But USC came down to their last drive against Oregon State. I mean, that one was another one, and it was just a lot of blown leads down the stretch with not much time this last weekend, which but that Washington State one, that was one that they were just dominating Oregon, and then all of a sudden Oregon just is like, oh yeah, I guess we should probably win this one. And then,
I know that I know that at least I specifically, I think I know you had your eye on this one too, on that game, that Oregon-Washington State game. Just given that Oregon, the points that we made before this past weekend was coming off that huge game against BYU, Washington State, coming off that Wisconsin win, then had a bye week, so an extra week to prep, an extra week to get healthy after facing that Badger that big ass Badger offensive line, that running game, having that extra week to get healthy was massive. And it showed in this game that they were able to hang in there. Like you said, had the lead up until the end of the game. So that would have been, man, I would have loved to see it. I like that Washington State team and that quarterback out there too.
Cougs.
Nothing wrong with a good old Cougar.
One more I wanted to just throw at you here too. That ending to the Auburn Missouri game. Not sure if you caught that one over the weekend, but Missouri had a chance. They were going in for the game-winning score, and the running back drops the ball at the 1 yard line as he's reaching out, and it's recovered by Auburn to end the game. So essentially, Brian Harsin would have been probably immediately fired if they would have lost to Missouri, but survives for another week thanks to a nice, costly fumble at the 1 yard line.
I mean, I don't know if you were able to catch any of that Florida-Tennessee game. Tennessee wins 38-33. But it looked like Florida's offense. I did notice that they certainly turned up the charge in terms of letting Anthony Richardson actually run the ball again.
Yeah.
So even in a loss there for Florida, at least the coaching mentality kind of shifted back to what it was in week 1 when the Gators were successful. So I think if you're a Gator fan, yeah, you took the loss for the first time to Tennessee in I believe since 2015.
Yeah, it's
feels
been a while.
Yeah, but at least there was a shift back to what made Anthony Richardson a special player and let him use his legs. So that's a little bit. That's at least encouraging. But geez, Tennessee, maybe Tennessee's for real. Finally, maybe the hype was. I know you were hyped up about them before the season, and I said, I'm going to take a wait and see approach. I think you might have been right from the get-go.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, their 2 toughest games are coming up, Bama, Georgia. So we'll see really where where they stand going into those 2. Not back-to-back, but within a couple weeks of each other.
Oh, thank God. That would have been disastrous.
They'll get a good test. Get Bama at home and then, I believe, on the road to Georgia. So we'll see how real they actually are, but could very well finish with only 2 losses. I mean, they, like you said, they got through Florida right now. And yeah, we'll see. Still have Kentucky. We'll learn a little bit about Kentucky. We'll talk about that game, I'm sure, later on in the preview as well. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. A fun team to watch. And like you said, Anthony Richardson, they finally opened it back up for him. It counted for 4 touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. So it was nice to see more of a balanced attack from him instead of just him trying to stay in the pocket and win the game that way, which you saw. It's not
great, Bob.
No. Any other games you wanted to touch on before we jump over to NFL?
No, those are the heavy hitters for me. Outside of that USC Oregon State game, which it was close, like we had thought it would be. 3-point W for USC. If you're Caleb Williams, and there was some pretty negative body language from Caleb Williams during that game. Might need to keep an eye on that if you're a USC fan. If he, if when the going gets tough and he can't just easily score, is he gonna kind of shut down? Which it looked like he kind of was doing in this game. So something to keep an eye on if you're a Trojan fan that might want to be skeptical about. We've seen that same, energy, lack of energy with Kyler Murray as well. Another former OU guy, that quarterback that was under Lincoln Riley, that was incredibly athletic and incredibly successful. But when the going gets tough, Kyler would shut down too. So if that's just maybe a little red flag, something to keep an eye on.
Somebody that didn't shut down and was completely animated was Bill's offensive coordinator slamming his tablet down at the end of the game when they couldn't get the play off. So,
I loved that.
Yes. I wanted to jump over to that game. Not only, I mean, Miami's undefeated right now, ended up knocking off the Bills, underdog in that one. And also wanted to talk about Tua as well. He took a shot and was trying to get back into the huddle and just falls over. And I don't know how he wasn't concussed and immediately taken out of the
He-
game, but apparently they said it was just a back injury. And I don't know. I've never seen somebody
That's-
keel over like that after taking 3 steps. And
dude,
he didn't know where he was.
and also like right when he got up, he shook his head like trying to like, get his I try to like regain, consciousness, I guess.
Right.
Like, not that he was fully knocked out or anything, but he gets up, shakes his head, try to shake off the stars, I guess, and then stands there for a sec, and then he starts, running back to the line, and he stumbles, and then he little stumble, and then he starts going again, and then he just drops dead. Like, I mean, not literally, obviously, but
Yeah.
like just a freaking bag of bricks just falls straight down to the floor or down to the turf. And I know in our group text, I said like, dude, this is like a really bad concussion. And then I get an update of like 10 minutes later. Yep, he's playing in the second half. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like he, and so this is what I don't understand, because it's supposed to be an independent neurologist that is the one that is doing those tests. It's not somebody that's affiliated with the Dolphins. So I didn't understand it at the time. I certainly still don't understand how he was able to play. Now they're saying he's likely to play for tonight's game, again, live on a Thursday for this game against the Bengals. But I don't see how he was able to play. I'm glad he did, because it certainly made for a much more entertaining game. But that concussion protocol certainly needs to be put into question, because that was, it looked like if you watch that video, everything should be put into question. The fact that he was able to come back not like 20 minutes later. Not a good job.
No, not at all. What game stood out to you from this last weekend?
Yeah, I mean that was certainly the big, I think, kind of the game of the weekend, really. The Bills, I mean, there's, what is it? I believe I wish I had the stat in front of me, but in 1-score games going back to last year, they're like 0-8 in 1-score games. And I think that you have to put the blame on that towards the fact that they have never established a running game since Josh Allen got there, outside of Josh Allen. And if you got a 1-score, 2-score lead, sometimes you just got to be okay with getting out of there with a W. And if your second half, if your fourth quarter is kind of ugly offensively, I think you really just sometimes ground and pound, run the clock, try to get out of there with a W, because right now the Bills are not winning in 1-score games. That's a massive takeaway. And when you are playing in playoff, we saw this against the Chiefs too last year. I mean, when you're in these 1-score games, yeah, sometimes they're shootouts, but sometimes they can get kind of ugly. And, where that ground and pound offense needs to be established at some point. And, you think 2nd round pick, James Cook, that's the intention, is to hopefully turn that up a little bit. But so far, they're not even trying that. I mean, a lot of their run game is still 100% Josh Allen dependent, whether it's him even under center going and rolling, just rolling to his left and going off tackle himself. This is the kind of stuff that young quarterback, yeah, that's fine. And, you can do that with a big quarterback like that. That's extremely athletic, but longevity wise, that's, if you want Josh Allen to be your quarterback for the next decade, we saw how fast Cam Newton fell off, and they were running a same type of a rushing offense where it was mostly Cam Newton centric. If Buffalo wants to run this type of offense, don't expect him to be your quarterback into, a good quarterback, at least into 2030, because no matter how big you are, you can't take this many hits that he's taking now. And I don't know, that was the major takeaway for me from that game and just the Bills offense. Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey, they need to embrace that run game, even though it's not sexy. I know Ken Dorsey is probably, as the play caller, is trying to get a head coaching job, but winning is what gets you a head coaching job, not just being a sexy schematically.
Last takeaway I had from this weekend is that the AFC West is not the AFC best. It's some bad teams out there.
Insane.
You've got Las Vegas losing to Tennessee. They haven't won a game yet, right? 1-2 maybe.
They're 0-3.
0-3.
Yep, they're 0-3.
Chargers at 1-2.
And all 1-score games for the Raiders too.
Raiders, yep. Chargers can't stay healthy at all. Another O lineman goes down. Bosa's going to be out for a good chunk of time. Herbert's playing hurt right now, and Herbert, yes. And Denver can't score more than 15 points in a game. Their offense just looks absolutely atrocious. So I don't know what to think. I mean, that was a division that we were super pumped for to start off the season. We had talked about that numerous times, and now it's like trash TV.
Yeah, the biggest disappointment for me is the Raiders. I did not see an 0-3 start.
No.
I can't figure it out. They, week 1, Devontae Adams goes ape shit. The last 2 weeks since Alan Lazard came back, Alan Lazard has more receiving yards, and they both have 2 receiving touchdowns. So I'm not going to make anything out of that, but Devontae Adams needs to be getting 10 plus targets every game. I don't really give a shit who's covering him. Like, just get him, just try to feed him the ball, because whatever you're trying to do now, sorry, Josh McDaniels, it's not working, man. You've got a better quarterback too in Derek Carr than you had last year in Mac Jones. So, and you've got Devontae Adams is Josh McDaniels' best receiver since Demaryius Thomas. Like, feed him, feed the shit out of him. And I go back to Demaryius Thomas when McDaniel was coaching the Broncos, obviously. But he hasn't had a receiver like Devontae Adams, maybe ever. I guess, unless you want to count that one Randy Moss season.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, you gotta feed him. That's why the Packers have won 13, or before this season had won 13 games in LaFleur each season in LaFleur's first couple of years with Green Bay, because so much of that offense was run through Devontae Adams. It works. Just do it. I don't know why it's so complicated.
Do you have any other games before we jump over to our preview?
Let's go.
All right. Week 5 NCAA is here. Have quite a few solid games on the slate this week. Ones I'm excited for. I'll kick it off right away, Joe. We got a Friday night Pac-12 battle, Washington at UCLA. Washington coming off of a big win over Stanford. No, you were pulling for Stanford with your upset pick there last week, Joe, but Washington looks legit right now. Both teams coming in 4-0, and kind of 2 rejuvenated quarterbacks too. Michael Penix Jr. getting a fresh start coming over from Indiana to Washington, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson's having a nice season too for UCLA. So we'll kind of see where UCLA falls into place here in this Pac-12 battle. We know what we were getting out of Washington. Saw them absolutely demolish Michigan State 2 weeks ago, and coming off of a win over a Stanford team that was coming off of a bye and had a couple weeks to prep for them. So I'm looking forward to this. Good football on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, both teams come into this game 4-0. Washington is a 2.5 point favorite on the road. However, keep in mind, UCLA, a home crowd, not the most intimidating
No.
atmosphere ever. But yeah, I mean, Washington coming in 2.5-point favorite, both teams 4-0. UCLA really hasn't played anybody at least of massive note. I mean, it's been cupcakes for days. So this is really UCLA's first test. But like you mentioned, Dorian Thompson-Robinson hovering around 300 or more yards a game between his rushing ability and through the air. So I like DTR. It's going to be interesting kind of how this game shakes out, just given that, like you said, Washington coming off that big win and last week, and then the Michigan State piece the week before. But UCLA hasn't been tested, and I don't know. I think that that 1.5 or 2.5 point line feels right. I do see this being a one-score game. I mean, even though it's at UCLA, they just haven't been tested at all. And Washington has at least played some multiple legitimate opponents. I almost want to pick the upset here with UCLA, but I don't think I can. Just Washington's just looked pretty strong. I don't know. Any thoughts on your end?
No, I think I like Washington in this one too. I mean,
Michael Penix is a difference maker. He made Indiana football look good. So like, I mean, Washington is a lot better of that recruiting status out there versus what Indiana is able to get. You gotta like Michael Penix here, I think.
Yeah, I don't think UCLA is going to have the firepower to keep up with Washington. So I do think it could be a one-score game in this one, but I think it'll be more so UCLA playing down by a couple scores and maybe getting a late score and then trying to get an onside kick or something. Washington could potentially falter, maybe a Washington State later on in the season. Was it the Apple Cup? It is Apple Cup. Okay,
sponsored by Steve Jobs.
Yeah. But I don't see them faltering on the road at UCLA. Like you said, it's not a tough road environment for you to go in right now. So I don't see them losing this one.
Not at all. No, I got Washington here. I want to turn it over to the Big Ten and go to one of the uglier games that is probably going to be coming up, and probably extremely low scoring. And guess who's involved in a low-scoring game?
Gotta be Iowa the idiots out wandering around.
Michigan at Iowa. Again, it sounds boring. Your over-under is at 42 points. So that kind of demonstrates how ugly this game, how boring, low-scoring this game is going to be. But Michigan is 11-point favorites in this one. And if I'm a Wolverine, I'm gonna be pretty wary about that. I mean, they came away with a 7-point victory last week against Maryland, but I don't know if JJ McCarthy. I question JJ McCarthy against this Iowa defense. He took all the snaps last week against Maryland, and something that we found out that it looked like he was doing is he's just hanging onto the ball way too long. And against Iowa's defense, where their entire defense is focused on tipped balls, focused on turning the ball over and stopping the run, Blake Corum last week against Maryland, 30 carries, 243 yards and 2 scores. If you're Michigan, you absolutely cannot think that he's going to double down on that and be able to do that against this Iowa defense. So a 1-touchdown victory against Maryland with those kinds of numbers on the ground, and with JJ McCarthy, he didn't seem that settled when he was forced to throw the ball. He just seemed very tentative. That's when that Iowa defense can thrive. So I could see this being a really ugly, low-scoring game. But if I'm a Wolverine, I'm not feeling that confident right now.
Yeah, and Iowa's been a tough place to play. Usually they show up and show out for the big games that have come in. I mean, you've seen Penn State have to pull off a miracle drive a couple years back going into Kinnick. And yeah, for Michigan, I think your magic number is 21. If you can score 21 points in this one, I don't think Iowa's got the firepower on offense to make it a game. I think Iowa's wanting to keep this into the teens, which is just sounds terrible.
That's what I'm
It just
saying.
sounds like a
It's
game I don't
gonna
want
be
to
ugly.
watch. So, yeah, I could see Michigan potentially faltering in this one, but I think ultimately Blake Corum, just keep feeding that guy the rock and let him get his yards per carry, eat up that clock, control the game, and they should be fine. Iowa's not the team it has been the last couple of years. Yeah, their defense has been playing well. They haven't been giving up a ton of points, but that offense is one of the worst in the Big Ten. And if you're Michigan, focus on getting a couple scores and you should be fine in Iowa.
I'm just looking at that 11-point line, and I'm saying I don't. Maybe you're right. 21, you're probably right. That does feel like the magic number, and maybe they get the W 21-9 because Iowa's offense is that bad, but feels like a little bit too much. I just Blake Corum is awesome, but 243 yards again, absolutely not.
Oh yeah, nope. All right, I am gonna gotta jump over to the SEC here and go for a battle in Mississippi. Kentucky going into Ole Miss. 4-0 teams. You got number 17 versus number 14 team in the country. And what do we know? Will Levis, another tough road test there for Kentucky. So Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's been calling out the fans this week that the student section hasn't been filling up. They've been having trouble filling up the stadium. So putting out the word and hoping that he can get a rowdy crowd in there for this one. But
yeah, that's one way to get booed if he if he loses this game.
Yes. Yep. But no, I'm excited for this one. Will Levis has looked pretty solid so far this year, and we'll see. I mean, like I said, both teams are 4-0 right now, taking different routes to getting to that 4-0. Ole Miss hasn't really had any tough tests yet to start off the season. Kentucky really hasn't either. So this will be the first real big test and huge road test for Kentucky to kick off SEC play for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kentucky, it's pretty obvious, like 1 Georgia, 2 Alabama, 3 Ohio State. You could put like 10 teams that are worthy of that number 4 spot. And right now, I think Kentucky fits the bill as one of those teams. I don't think I can put Ole Miss there quite yet. I mean, Levis is been one of the higher performing quarterbacks. Mark Stoops, we've touched on him in weeks previous, where that dude's a pretty damn legit coach. So I think it's going to be a huge game. I think I like Kentucky here outright on the road. Jackson Dart, Will Levis. I'm going to side with Will Levis.
Yeah. No, like I said, Ole Miss, their toughest game so far has been probably Georgia Tech, which just fired their coach last week. So we've seen Kentucky go down to Florida. So Kentucky's already got one SEC win under their belt in the Swamp, which I think the Swamp's a lot tougher place to play than Ole Miss. So
big time.
I think Kentucky should be fine here, but you never know. I mean, Ole Miss,
you never know.
Kiffin's offense, can't count them out, but I think Kentucky's got the better talent and better firepower in this one and should be fine.
I'm going to stay in the SEC, and this game in particular isn't extremely interesting to me. Alabama at Arkansas. Bama's going to walk away with an easy W. Mostly what I wanted to touch on was, again, the AP doesn't know what the hell they're doing with this voting. Arkansas dropped from 10 before that game last week against A&M down to 20 in a game that came down to the wire against A&M. Like, if you think a team is a top 10 team, they shouldn't drop 10 spots with a 2-point loss to a team that you thought should be ranked number 6 in the preseason poll. Like, these voters I don't know if they're watching the games, paying attention to the games, even looking at the freaking scoreboard when they're doing these votes, but a team dropping from 10 down to 20, you thought this was a top 10 team. When you say a team is a top 10 team, that means you think that they can compete for the college football playoff. Dropping down to 20? Like, I get that it was a loss to your number 23 overall team or whatever A&M was there during that game, but A&M gets that win, jumps 6 spots up. Arkansas gets the loss, drops 10 spots. Like, there's just absolutely zero consistency with what these AP voters are doing. It's a joke. Kansas is not in the top 25. They're number 4 in the country on offense in scoring. Like, these rankings make me go just lose my mind sometimes. God.
And it was a 2-point loss. They didn't
lost
get blown
by 2.
out. And it was at a neutral site. It wasn't like they got blown out at home or something to drop
and it was
them down
in
10
Texas.
spots. Yeah.
At the Jerry Dome.
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I'm looking forward to the ESPN playoff show coming out, where at least there's a better group of people that are putting.
Think that those people are actually watching these games.
Right. Not throwing darts at the wall.
God. That's the last of my college goodies.
All right. My last one, then I will kick it over to, we haven't talked about the ACC. Let's go NC State at Clemson. This is the site of College Game Day this week, and Clemson, coming off of that 2 overtime win, took a lot out of them. So I'm curious to see how they rebound, see if they've got a little hangover from that game. And yeah, I mean, NC State's coming in and looking to knock off Clemson. This would be a huge statement win for them. NC State hasn't played in a game this big in quite some time. So you got Devin Leary coming in. See if DJ can repeat his 5 touchdown performance the last week, and what that Clemson defense looks like, because NC State's offense is pretty good. So this could be a nice high scoring game, or if Clemson's defense shows up, but who knows, it might end up being all Clemson, but I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah. I mean, I was really shocked that Clemson was a 7-point favorite in this, or is currently a 7-point favorite in this one. I don't think that they necessarily deserve a full touchdown. I could see 3.5, 4.5, but a full touchdown feels like a little bit too much. NC State, this game should absolutely be on upset alert going into this weekend.
Yep. Speaking of upset alert, Joe,
how's that for a transition?
Move into our upset picks of the week. Both got shut out last week, unfortunately, with our picks. Joe going with Stanford over Washington, and I went with Wake over Clemson. So not the best. I do have a 1-0 lead right now. So Jill, why don't you go ahead and let the folks know who you're putting on upset alert this week?
Yeah, game that you touched on, that you brought up, Kentucky versus Ole Miss, +7. Kentucky's a 7-point dog, and they're, like I said, I think they're in the mix to be a top 4 team right now. Levis, Jackson Dart, I'm taking Will Levis here. Ole Miss last week only beat Tulsa by 8, and Kentucky has looked really good all season. So I was I was pretty thrilled that I can get Kentucky at +7, and there's a pretty good chance I'm gonna be putting money down on Kentucky on the money line, because I think Kentucky should be favored in this game. Certainly not a 7-point dog.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have the same pick this week, because it's just stupid. I don't know how Kentucky, with what they've done so far this season, is getting the disrespect that they are, and a 7-point underdog to Ole Miss. is just absolutely mind-boggling and should be easy money for those of you in legal betting states that can responsibly bet for this weekend.
Just put that bet in for entertainment purposes only. Plus 220 money line.
Hell yeah. All right, moving into NFL Week 4 previews. Be our last segment of the day. Going to hit you up with some of the games we're looking forward to this week. And why don't you kick it off, Joe?
Yeah, I want to take a look at the nice 8:30 a.m. Central Time kickoff Sunday. Gotta love waking up to NFL.
Public service announcement. Make sure your lineups are set, or at least the guys that are going in the London game are locked into your lineup in case you do stay out at the bars a little late on Saturday and don't wake up in time for kickoff.
I mean, 8:30 is pretty early, but especially anybody out on the West Coast, that's 6:30. So,
oof.
Yeah, yikes. I'm just, couple things that I want to look at here. First time for both these coaches as head coaches in London. Dennis Allen for the Saints, Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings. Dennis Allen is bad as a head coach. So even though Kevin O'Connell is a first-time a first season head coach, Dennis Allen had his, he had his run with the Raiders, a despicable one. I almost have to give it to the coaching edge to Kevin O'Connell, which I should say, like, I would normally if it was just a normal Sunday game, but who knows how he'll be prepared for an 8:30 a.m. kickoff by the Vikings body clocks. So that edge that I normally would give to the Vikings, it's more questionable, certainly, here in London on an 8:30 game. Weird schedule, weird flights. And speaking of schedules, Kirk Cousins is not playing at noon Central.
Is this technically a primetime game, Joe? Because it's the only one on TV at that time.
It's also prime time London time. It's like
true. Maybe he's good then.
He'll figure it out by fourth quarter maybe. But no, I just, I see that the Saints are 2.5-point dogs. That line feels right, but I'm almost tempted to take the Saints here because Kirk Cousins, first-time quarterback, first-time head coach, and on top of that, Marshawn Lattimore is going to be most likely shadowing Justin Jefferson. JJ went off week 1, obviously, against Green Bay, 9 catches for 184, but these last 2 weeks, 6 catches for 48 yards. Last week against the Lions, 3 catches for 14 yards. And that's facing Jeff Okudah, who was pretty much written off as a bust as a corner. So I don't know if that's a function of the offense, if that's a function of the Lions actually maybe had a strong a legitimately strong secondary for the first time in God knows how long. If that's just that Jeff Okudah went off, I don't know. But 3 catches for 14 yards against the Lions, you never see that from a number 1 receiver. So, and now you got Marshawn Lattimore coming in, and I think that, so I'm not saying JJ is going to get shut down again or anything like that, but Lattimore is one of the better cover corners in the league, and I think the Saints, even as underdogs, I think they may have the edge here. But good breakfast football, no doubt.
Yeah. Just keep an eye with your Saints. I believe Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry all questionable. So that could be a huge Chris Olave game for you, for those out there that might have him sitting on a bench somewhere. This might be a good one if Michael Thomas is out. I am going to move to a game that I'm intrigued by, Bills at Ravens. So Bills coming off of that tough loss that we talked about earlier against Miami, and the Ravens coming in and wanting to make a statement against this Bills team. And The fun fact from this one, Gel, is after this game is done, assuming there's no tie, one of these teams will be at the 500 mark after 4 games, which
Insane.
is pretty nuts. So I'm looking forward to it. See if the Bills can bounce back here in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar right now, trying not to be biased here, but he was my preseason MVP pick. Right now, first in the NFL in pass yards, passing touchdowns, and tied with Christian McCaffrey for fourth in rushing yards. That entire offense is 100% Lamar Jackson. Bills have like 6 guys that are on the injury, or 6 guys that didn't practice at all today. Again, live on a Thursday. 6 guys that were already ruled out, and some of these are key players. So I think Baltimore might be coming in and ready to show the world that they are the best team in the AFC, because their one loss was that massive comeback win against, or I guess, blown win against the Dolphins. So I think the Ravens are here to, show, hey, even with all these injuries, we don't give a shit. We think we're the best team in the AFC. So I love this. Is my best game of the weekend by a mile.
Yep.
There's definitely a number of games that make me pretty nauseous in terms of some of these matchups. Seattle at Detroit, Jets at Steelers, Bears at Giants. Sorry, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, not going to do it for me. Justin Fields, 297 yards over 3 games. Doesn't move the needle for me. Tennessee at Indy, intriguing for divisional purposes, but both those teams have been underwhelming. Cleveland, Atlanta, really a matchup of backups. Washington, Dallas, Wentz, backup quarterback. But there is a game that in the past I would have said this is garbage. Jacksonville at Philly.
Yeah.
I think that these have been the 2 teams that you can give genuine A grades to, A through F. You can give both these teams A's for how they performed. Jacksonville could be undefeated if they hadn't blown that, that last second, or hadn't let up that last second touchdown against Washington in week 1. They've looked really good since then and just blew the doors off the Chargers. Philly has just been dominant this whole time, this whole season. So I'm extremely intrigued. 2 of the best quarterbacks right now based on the way that they're playing, or I should say 2 of the best quarterbacks in college, and now that seems to finally be translating over to the NFL in Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts. I think that Philly, with how deep that roster is and how strong that offensive line is, I think Philly is genuinely, actually real. I think that they should be the favorites right now in the NFC. Granted, the NFC as a whole has not been all that impressive, but Philly's looked really damn good. Jacksonville, like I said, we saw them against the Chargers. They blew the doors off of them. And I want to see how real Jacksonville is, because if the Jags can hang in there with Philly and make that a legit game, that's going to be, if you're a Jags fan, you have to know that, or you have to feel really, really encouraged by that.
Yeah. No, a little Doug Peterson homecoming action too, going back to their raucous Philly crowd. I had this one written down too. And yeah, I'm more interested to see, is Jacksonville for real? Because if they come in and put up a fight, even if they lose at Philly, I think they have to be the favorites in the AFC South. I mean, you were jumping on that earlier, Gel, and talking about that for some of your betting tips a couple weeks back, but this could go a long way, especially
Doug Peterson plus 2,000 coach of the year.
Yep.
Let's go, baby.
And I'm curious to see, Philly's defense is actually really solid too. They've been very efficient and doing fantastic work so far this season. So I'm curious to see. Trevor Lawrence has gotten off to a pretty hot start, see what he looks like against a tough defense as well. So there's a lot of individual matchups that I'm looking forward to in this one and seeing who comes away with the victor. I mean, Philly is undefeated right now, could get to 4-0 with a win over Jacksonville. And this could be a quality win. I mean, we haven't been able to say that about the Jacksonville Jaguars in a while, but hey, it's true.
What do you think about Zay Jones? I mean, do you think we've been fantasy wise, we've been sitting here waiting on Zay Jones to pop, and it's like he always had the talent, whether that was in Buffalo, whether that was in maybe I don't know if he was in Oakland or Vegas two. Or maybe both. Yeah. Like, so now, but right now it's kind of him and Christian Kirk is kind of a 1-2, 1A, 1B in this Jacksonville offense. Going forward, fantasy wise, do you think that Zay Jones is somebody that at this point needs to be rostered? And if you want to take it a step further, you feel comfortable starting here?
He's definitely somebody that needs to be rostered. I would be a hold for me right now, though. I want to see what happens this week because, like I said, Billy's got a tough defense. So I don't know if there's going to be a ton of points in this one per se. They might be playing a little bit of catch up, but I don't know if I'd be able to roll out Zay Jones, especially with no teams on bye this week. I think he's a pickup for sure if he's out there. Take a look in your waivers, but I think it's a hold for me this week.
Yeah, and facing, like you said, facing that tough Philly D.
Yep. Last game, since you took this one from me, I want to see the Sunday night game, Chiefs at Buccaneers. Both teams coming off of tough losses, not being able to get the offense going this last week. So I'm curious to see what the Chiefs offense can do against this Bucs defense, or if it's going to be back-to-back weeks where they're stuck in the teens or less. They only put up 17 points last week in Indianapolis. Tampa Bay, obviously their offense is struggling, and get Mike Evans back, so he's off the 1-game suspension. But outside of that, Julio, Chris Godwin, we don't know what else that's going to look like. And Tampa really couldn't get Leonard Fournette going a ton last week against Green Bay, and they need to get him going against this Chiefs defense as well. So I'm looking forward to this little Holmes-Brady. Could be the last time that they face each other. So kind of the passing of the torch, maybe.
Well, I'm wondering how Tampa could be affected with those storms that came through.
Yeah.
You know, they were displaced and practiced all week, or at least the last few days in Miami. Yep. I couldn't believe that they practiced in Miami. Like, that's still like the hurricane still kind of swung by Miami. You'd think that they could have found a different place to practice, but Miami, I just thought bold choice, like,
right.
But I don't know if game being in Tampa, they said they're going to play at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. And so I'm sitting here wondering do they have a home field advantage here? I feel like that's like, who knows who's going to show up. There could be and especially, something that has been a hot topic for Badger fans, you being you, digital tickets. If there's no signal and everybody's sitting there with digital tickets, are fans going to be able to get in? Like, what can fans even get to the game?
That would be up and running by Sunday, but
I hope so. But I mean, I don't know. I just wonder about what that home field advantage would look like, because I'd imagine there's going to be people either out of town, or maybe they don't even have freaking transportation to the stadium. I don't know. I mean, looking at some of those videos of that damage, there was a lot of really intense damage that went down in that area. So I don't have a great feel on this game just because of that.
Yeah, no, it could be a toss up for sure on that. Any other matchups, Joe? I know it's a rough slate for NFL.
It's a rough slate. I named 6 games that made me sick to my stomach. But no, I guess just that Monday night game, I want to see if Jimmy Garoppolo can get over him pulling an Orlovsky if which turned out to be the smart play, given that after he stepped out of bounds, he threw a pick six.
Yeah.
So turns out he made the smart play on accident.
Maybe he can see the future.
I wouldn't put it past him, but no, I don't know. Both QBs really. Stafford leads the league in picks, and Jimmy looked bad last week. So hopefully with a full week for him to prep and know that he's the starter going forward, he can get his shit together. But I'm just more interested in the Stafford, more on the Rams side too, because they haven't been explosive whatsoever offensively all season. I mean, they were using Ben Skoranek as a fullback, a few blocking plays, but more using him in this, having him run routes from the fullback position, which that's an absolute W for McVay if he's able to get away with that. But can he get away with that against this Niners defense? We'll see. So I don't have much beyond that on this game, but it's been two teams that I think so far have been a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Just no explosion whatsoever.
Yeah. See if one of these teams can get going. I mean, last year, this was an epic battle. This was the NFC Championship game last year to see who was representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And yeah, lackluster start for both teams, and they're looking to get it rolling. But all right, so we'll be back with you tomorrow. Again, quick hitter episode. It'll be fairly quick. We'll get you some betting nuggets out there, and we'll unveil our Drew locks of the week. So make sure you tune into that before the college slate gets kicked off. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. YouTube, guess what? We're also Dead Arm Sports. Type that into the search bar. Subscribe, click the bell so that way you know when our episodes drop live. You can ask us any questions in the chat box. If you want to ask us any questions outside of that, Joe can be found at DasJel. That's at DasJel. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DasJPEC. Make sure you subscribe to our TikTok page. Joe's been firing out some betting nuggets TikTok there for you
on the clock
as well. What are some of the listening platforms they can find our podcast at, Joe?
Yeah, as you mentioned, apparently we chose a very good name for this podcast because Dead Arm Sports is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, TikTok, all of that. Dead Arm, just search Dead Arm Sports. You'll find us there. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review whatever your chosen listening platform is. If you are following us on YouTube, make sure to hit that bell so that you get notifications whenever we put out new content. Comments on all of our videos, we're monitoring that. Whenever we go live, we're always checking that chat box. So at Dead Arm Sports all across the board.
Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend. Again, we'll be back with you on Saturday morning, so make sure you tune into that. Help you to win some cash over the weekend. All right, Jill, close her out.
Well, as they say in London, cheerio.